We'll begin with news on Nigeria's Democracy Day as Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu paid tribute to the winner of the June 12, 1993 presidential election, Moshood Abiola, during his maiden Democracy Day address aired at 7 a.m. on Wednesday. President Tinubu described the late Abiola, who died under suspicious circumstances following the annulment of his election by the late General Sani Abacha, as a martyr who stood for principles that are far more valuable than life itself. In his address, President Tinubu also acknowledged the sacrifices of numerous Nigerians who fought to establish democracy and paid the ultimate price. He eulogized Kudirat Abiola, wife of Chief Abiola, who was brutally murdered in the struggle for democracy, and Alfred Rawani and Major General Shehu Yadua, retired, both of whom were also silenced by the military junta while pursuing democratic ideals.
We lost great heroes and heroines along the way. In this struggle, the winner of June 12, 1993 presidential election, Chief MKO Abiola, the most significant symbol of our democratic struggle, his wife, Kudirat, General Shehu Musa Yar'Adua, and Pa Alfred Rawani, amongst others, sacrificed their very lives. They bravely surrendered their fortunes so that our nation might have a better one.
Still on the commemoration of Democracy Day in Nigeria, President Tinubu has assured the organized labor that an executive bill on the new national minimum wage for workers will soon be sent to the National Assembly for passage. President Tinubu, who also acknowledged the economic difficulties in the nation, empathized with Nigerians and promised necessary repairs required to fix the economy. He urged Nigerians to embrace the challenges of the future and to continue moving forward together toward progress and prosperity.
I understand the economic difficulties we face as a nation right now. Our economy has been in desperate need of reform for decades. It has been unbalanced because it was built on the flawed foundations and over-reliance on revenue from exploitation of oil. The reforms we have initiated are intended to create a stronger, better foundation for future growth. There is no doubt that the reform has occasioned hardship. I feel your pains. Yet, there are necessary repairs required to fix the economy over the long run so that everyone has access to economic opportunity, fair pay, and compensation for its endeavor and labor. As we continue to reform the economy, I shall always listen to the people and will never turn my back on you. In this spirit, we have negotiated in good faith and with open arms with organized labor on a new national minimum wage. We shall soon send our executive bill to the National Assembly to enshrine what has been agreed upon as part of our law for the next 5 years or less.
In the meantime, organized labor has rejected President Bola Tinubu's claims that an agreement has been reached on a new national minimum wage in his nationwide broadcast to mark Democracy Day. Tinubu had claimed that a consensus had been reached on the long-debated new minimum wage between the federal government and organized labor. In his national broadcast to mark the 2024 Democracy Day in Abuja on Wednesday, Tinubu revealed that an executive bill will soon be sent to the National Assembly to formalize the new minimum wage agreement. However, in a statement on Wednesday, the acting president of Nigeria Labour Congress, Adewale Adeyeju, said there was no agreement reached by the tripartite committee on the national minimum wage at the time negotiations ended on Friday, June 7th, 2024. I'll also tell you that Nigeria governors have taken turns to promise hope for citizens in their respective states as Nigeria celebrates the 25th anniversary of her return to democracy in 1999. After congratulating Nigerians on their 25th year of unbroken democracy anniversary, the Imo State Governor, Hope Uzodinma, said the atonement of the feat is due to the sacrifices of Nigerian heroes and nationalists. In his message to commemorate Democracy Day, Governor Uba Sani of Kaduna State commended the citizens for embracing democracy and defending it with their blood and sweat. Speaking on Wednesday in Bauchi State, Governor Bala Mohammed said it was clear that democracy is not only rooted but has also come to stay in Nigeria. Governor Diku Rada of Katsina State issued a stirring call for unity, tolerance, and unwavering support for nation's progress as it confronts formidable challenges. A group of civil society organizations in Nigeria led a protest in Lagos to express their grievances against the government over the economic hardship and rising inflation in the country. They are asking the government to create people-friendly policies and to eradicate the looming hunger and hardship among its citizens. News Central's Adeshawa Udushoga reports.
This is the second Democracy Day that the Tinubu-led administration has observed since taking office in 2023. And for many, not much has changed except for the increasing lamentations over rising hardship. While June 12 has been set aside to celebrate the significance of democracy in commemoration of the 1993 election, widely adjudged as the freest and fairest in Nigeria to date, Nigerians express disappointment that the same cannot be said about the election that ushered the current administration. With placards bearing different inscriptions, civil society groups and human rights activists in their numbers gathered in the capital of Lagos, Ikeja, to protest the current economic hardship and policies of the government with adverse effect on the citizens' welfare. Among their demands are an end to hardship and hunger, fee hikes for tertiary students, insecurity and police brutality, and reversal of fuel prices and electricity tariffs, among others.
There is hardly a Democracy Day celebration in Nigeria now that has gone without protests by civil society groups. Again, we are witnessing another one. Amidst the hunger and police brutality, insecurity, hiking prices of commodities, Nigerians are asking for an end to the economic hardship in the country, and they're asking the president, Tinubu-led administration, to immediately reverse prices to when it was before when it was elected president, or resign from office.
We're here because what democracy stands for, we're not getting it in this country. We're here because what Abiola stood for, we're not getting it here. We're not getting it in this country. Abiola stood for what was right. Abiola stood for the masses. But what we have today, we have government of the bourgeois. We have government that doesn't care for the masses, and they want to celebrate June 12. Where are the real June 12 activists? Where are the ones who stood for June 12? Not those cabals, not those looters in the air conditioner now. So we are on ground to already show Nigerians that we're hungry, and Nigerians should be ready for what's going to happen very soon. And that's the revolution. Revolution is about to come up.
We are celebrating democracy in the midst of poverty, in the midst of plenty. There is nothing to celebrate. We are only celebrating corruption, insecurity, hunger.
Students requesting that the government repeal the tuition fee increase were among the demonstrators. According to them, studying in Nigeria's unfavorable setting has gotten even harder.
It's not easy begging people for money. We have turned to an armed beggar. From the fact that we cannot afford to live. So we can't afford anything on campus. Everything is cost on campus than outside, honestly.
The Nigerian police force had earlier warned against violent protests across the country. And to maintain safety and order, there was a heavy presence of security personnel across the state and with the protesters. In Lagos, for News Central, Adeshawa Udushoga.
Very stirring sights indeed. And now to discuss this further, I'm joined by civil society organization expert, Cad Peter. Cad, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you for doing this with us.
Thank you, my pleasure. Good evening.
Good evening. Let's get started. How do you see CSOs hold government accountable, whether it's through advocacy, campaigning and public, awareness campaigns. Can they hold government accountable?
Of course, we're holding government accountable, not as much as we want to. And I dare to say that not because of the civil society. We have seen a lot of recklessness from government officials. We have seen a lot of lack of respect for rules of engagement and democratic tenets and a lot of other things. So I think the president of the civil society have helped to put check in some of the excesses of government. And the fact that we keep demanding, we keep carrying on advocacy, and occasionally we protest on the street if need be. And that has made government to recognize the fact that, look, you cannot run business as usual. There are a set of people that are observing your action and inaction. There are people that are going to speak out. There are people that will call for mass protests, that will call for press statements, press conferences, that will write petition, all of this. So all of this put together means that government know that the CSO are existing, and they know that we're a pressure group and we're people that are people-centered and interested in good governance, accountability, and transparency.
Right. I mean, CSOs is holding accountable. There are pressure groups that can hold government accountable, which is very important. But then there's a part of participating, right? So how best can, what are the mechanisms for CSOs to participate, in situations like, policy-making processes or even, public consultations and or better yet, committee hearings?
Yeah, basically, for example, if the National Assembly look into possible bills or laws, they usually invite the civil society for public hearing. And even instances where we are not invited, we make ourselves available by submitting our memoranda or submitting our position or requesting for such public hearing. And so that has given us opportunity to be able to engage government. Aside from the National Assembly, we equally pay visit to government officials to discuss government policy and to make suggestions. Remember that Nigeria is a signatory to the Open Government Partnership, which means that it's a co-creation where the CSO and the government need to sit down to discuss issues of citizen engagement, budget, and number of other initiatives. So these are avenues and opportunities we've cashed on to be able to interact with government. And aside from that, there are instances where we have people from the CSOs that have been invited by government to work for them. We use those we go through such kind of individual to say, look, we have concerns, we have issues that we think government need to listen to, and we use that to reach out to government. But again, the media, just like the interview you're granting me now, a number of media organizations do invite us to seek for our opinion. We do write articles in newspaper, we do issue press statements. So all of this provide us avenue to reach out to government and to let government know our thoughts about certain government policies or to propose areas where we think government need to intervene. For example, I give you a quick one. It's because of the civil society that we're seeing increased participation of women in politics and governance. It's because of the civil society that persons with special needs are being recognized as integral part of our society. It's because of civil society that ethnic and religious minority persons are given recognition that democracy is not all about majority. So all of these are contribution of the civil society. When you come to the police aspect of the country, the civil society are actively involved in police reform, talking so much about the need for police not to detain people endlessly, talking about the fact that people can equally go to court to challenge certain government actions. So all of these are the work of the CSO around the country.
Right. I mean, a very, very laudable work as well by the CSOs. But then how then can they ensure that all that is represented or what they represent is being, is being implemented in the democratic process? I mean, take, for example, amplifying, the voices of the marginalized or underrepresented voices, which is really the tenets of democracy, which is for the people. So how then can CSOs ensure this? It's one thing to pressure government, but how can they ensure that, there's some level of representation?
Yeah, it's the continuous advocacy, the continuous engagement and interaction with government, influencing government decision during pre-campaign period, influencing manifesto of political parties, inviting government individuals that are looking for election to share their blueprint with the community and the CSO, ability to influence such, and then at the end of the day, when they win election, we're able to present the document to them to say, look, during your campaign, you promised A, B, C, and D. We're here to follow up with you to ensure full implementation of such promises. I must quickly add, when we talk about CSO, people think CSO are only NGO practitioners. No, the Nigeria Bar Association is a CSO. The Nigeria Union of Road Transport Workers is a CSO. The Market Women Association is CSO. Now, Watch Feeder. So it's a large group of individuals. and collectiveness of several persons that make up the CSO. So all of these are voices that hold government responsible and voices that hold government accountable. So if government does not listen to one CSO, it will definitely listen to another. If it doesn't listen to two, we have the ability to be on the street. We have the ability to speak louder than what I'm saying now and to get government attention. And over the years, we've seen that we are not yet there, but we've seen deliberate and intentional engagement that has given us some kind of response, and we're seeing more of our input in governance around the country.
And that's what it is. It's just continually to continue to push ahead and continue to apply as much pressure as possible. Well, Kat, Peter, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you for doing this with us.
Thank you so much for having me, and happy Democracy Day to all of us.
Likewise. We'll move away from that now as Nigeria marks 25 years of uninterrupted democracy. Some residents in the nation's capital, Abuja, have expressed displeasure over the failure of successive governments to find a solution to challenges affecting citizens. Some of them spoke with New Central Television, called for wide-scale reforms that will improve the well-being of Nigerians. Marvelous Obomanu reports.
It is the people's government, being that it is the people who are at the center of it, choosing leaders and holding them accountable.
Only in
Usual festivities and show of resilience by the people of Borno State amidst ongoing security challenges and the economic realities. The Borno State government and the federal authorities have been working to restore normalcy in the state.
They have changed the face of Borno State in so many areas. But Your Excellency, the Nigerian securities, the Nigerian military abandoned, neglected.
Democracy Day in Nigeria was moved to June the 12th by former President Muhammadu Buhari in 2018 to honor the significance of June 12th to Nigeria's transition from military rule to democracy. For the current administration, this is the second Democracy Day celebration since President Bola Tinubu assumed office on May 29, 2023.
Democracy, by its definition, is government of the people, for the people, and by the people. Nigeria is marking 25 years of uninterrupted democracy. We're here on the streets to find out from Nigerians what democracy means for them and how the journey has been since 1999. Let's get to find out.
Look, 25 years of experiment is not about experiment. It is 25 years of gradual growth. And of course, what we are facing in the nation is that we have resources, we have leaders, but you see, regional agitation has not given us the right room for Nigeria to grow in the democratic order that we actually expect.
If you enter the market now, you will know that things is not funny. So nobody has hope for them to celebrate democracy now. When we are suffering out there, we will be celebrating. No, they are the ones celebrating it because they are enjoying it, they are in the power.
For many Nigerians, democracy brought a promise of prosperity and development. However, after 25 years, some say this remains a tall dream.
This government for some people, by some people, and with their family. We're just saying democracy. Our leaders, they don't do anything that will favor the poor masses.
From the onset, how we get the people, how the people come on board, how they are elected, from the councillors to the chairman, to the House of Assembly, to state governors, to the representative Senate, and the president. We have not gotten it, not even 50%, because the people's will is always decimated.
For the past 25 years, it has been a demonstration of madness, a demonstration of exploitation, a demonstration of the continuity of putting the entirety of the mass of the working people into a life of penury and living in squalor, a demonstration of embezzlement, a demonstration of a few ruling class to continuously embezzle the commonwealth of the nation for their own interests, as opposed to investing such and improving the standard of living a lot of the entirety of the mass of the working people.
Successive governments, the previous governments we had in this country, has not also implemented policies
that can better the lives or the loss of the Nigerian masses. In short, those elements are just being paid for nothing. They are there to sleep, they are there to collect our money. Have you been to club on Saturdays? They only collect our money to go to club, flex with their girlfriends and the concubines and the Olo shows. That's what they do with our money. They are not implementing any policies that can better the lives of anybody.
President Bola Tinubu, in his address to the nation, promised to ensure that Nigeria moves forward on the path of progress and inclusiveness. Many citizens will be hoping this becomes a reality. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Oboman.
Watching news now on News Central TV. We'll go on a short break. Stay with us. Still talking Nigeria's Democracy Day, the 2023 presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, has called on the masses and political leaders to respect and protect the institutions of a democratic state by obeying the governing laws of the state and being accountable to the people. Obi said democracy was beyond elections but fulfilling the responsibilities of responsible governance as contained in the Constitution. His comments come on the heels of the 2024 celebration, the Democracy Day, on June 12 in Nigeria. According to him, the creation of a true society for democracy is to thrive is possible. Now, the former presidential candidate also lamented some of the ratings, which he said were indications that the nation is not truly democratic. And now to discuss the role of legislature, which includes rule of law, I'm joined by legal practitioner Dennis Osaretin. Dennis, thank you so much for joining on. We appreciate you for doing this with us. Let's get started quickly, shall we? What is the role of the legislature when it comes to, just overseeing the implementation of, laws? And how does it hold the executive branch, accountable?
Yes, thank you for having me once again. You agree with me that the legislature, as an arm of government, plays a very pivotal role in our democratic system and institution. Beyond the primary role of lawmaking, they are also supposed to, represent the people and hold other arms of government accountable in the way and manner they implement the policies and programs of government. But in our case here in Nigeria, it appears the legislature or the legislative arm of government appears to always be in bed with the executive, and they are really not alive to their responsibilities of holding the other arms accountable. And that is the problem to our democracy.
And I mean, I would like to ask why this has happened. Has this been the case? Did this just, sort of deteriorated to gotten to the point where, they seem to be in cahoots or in bed, as you put it?
Yeah, for me, I think the challenge will always start from the way and manner they are elected into office. Many of them, they bulldoze their way into, to government, without necessarily knowing the role, the pivotal role they're supposed to play as the true reps of the people. I think that's the challenge. It is the recruitment process. Many times, many persons get elected to the legislative arm without necessarily understanding the constitutional functions or their roles as spelled out in our laws, and that is a problem. And I think we need to really engage in some form of advocacy to educate them, to make them reawaken their minds to their constitutional role. That is the starting point.
Now, one of the roles that I'm privy of, that I actually know about, is that they're to ensure representation of diverse interests and perspectives, right? But how can they ensure that? How can the legislature ensure, all of this in the lawmaking process when it seems to be don't even understand what the function is in the beginning?
Yeah, of course. That is where the press come in, the people come in, and the people they are representing. They must always hold them accountable. We must use the avenue of days like this, which is the Democracy Day, to remind them of their core mandate, their core responsibility, which is to represent the interests of their constituents. Because if they don't remember this core value, there is no way they can hold the executive, to account. It's not the duty of the legislator ordinarily to be building roads and bridges, to be building bricks and mortar. That is not their function. That's not their responsibility. But it appears that the only concern these days is for them to begin to get themselves involved in the way and manner contracts are awarded. They have left the all-important responsibility of lawmaking and policy formulation to dragging and begging for contracts, and that is for me is the challenge beyond just the issues of a budget approval and padding and unpadding of budget. What other functions can you really pinpoint that this National Assembly or the legislative arm of government is good at? So for me, the people need to continue to remind them and hold them accountable so that they can redirect their path to the core functions of lawmaking, policy formulation, representation, oversight, implementation of the policies and programs of government. When the people begin to realize and begin to hold them to account, we may still be having this monster in the room.
Now, one of the things that we're certain of is when it comes to legislatures, to balance the individual rights and freedoms with the need for, for public order and national security, especially when it comes to drafting laws. That's very crucial, right? But how does the legislature balance these things, when it comes to individual rights, freedoms with the need, for public order as well as, national security?
Yeah, the legislative arm or the legislators must first realize that we have a country, we have a nation to build. If we proceed from this background, we begin to understand that, for example, recently we had the burning issue of the need to have ranches across the country. While we, consider the fact that every Nigerian has a right to stay and move, across the length and breadth of the country, we also realize that the average farmer in Benue State, the average farmer in the South, in the Southeast, also reserve the right to property. So we must be able to balance some of these rights and privileges to the overall development of a nation state. So this idea of always appealing to parochial sentiment and regional sentiment far and above our national interest is for us the bane of our democracy. So our legislators must play their pivotal role in reorienting their constituents to remind them that we must first have a country before we can begin to enjoy our rights and privileges.
And I mean, you make a case there, but let's look at, the parliamentarian, or parliamentary procedure that guide the conduct of legislative business and how they are enforced. What are the principles of this procedure and how is it enforced?
Yeah, for me, the starting point will always be the Constitution, because the legislative arm, like we have always, argued, is a creation of law. And by their configuration, it's supposed to be the benchmark, for our democratic practice and, principles, because it appears to be the coalition, the largest representation of the people. Because, for example, if you look at the Senate, every member, every constituent, every region of the country ought to have a representative, at the level of the National Assembly. But whether or not these members who are elected still, remember where they are coming from, that for us is the challenge. So we must continue to advocate that probably it's high time we to also look at our constitution, look at our legal framework, and see whether this current bicameral legislative system is becoming a burden. Because we have also argued that even though we consider the fact that our people need to be represented, we must also now begin to realize that there is a burgeoning cost of governance. So by the time you now having a very bloated budget for the legislative arm, and it appears to be that the legislative arm is now becoming the sinkhole in our budgetary system. So how can these individuals give value for money? So these are some of the issues that we now also begin to look at in way and manner these in this arm it runs and begin to contribute to our democratic systems.
Well, Dennis, many thanks. Very solid analysis so far. Appreciate you for doing this with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Dennis Osarity, their legal practitioner. As Nigeria celebrated its annual Democracy Day, the Borno State House of Assembly Speaker Abdul Karim Lawan used the occasion to call for urgent action to recapture and resettle Abandam and Guzamala local government area from insurgents. Now, speaking during the Democracy Day's festivities in Borno, Speaker Lawan emphasized the need to restore normalcy and security in Guzamala, which has been under the grip of Boko Haram and ISWAP, the terrorists, for years. News Central's Umaru Kirawa completes the report.
Usual festivities and show of resilience by the people of Borno State amidst ongoing security challenges and the economic realities. The Borno State government and the federal authorities have been working to restore normalcy in the state.
They have changed the face of Borno State in so many areas. But Your Excellency, the Nigerian securities, the Nigerian military abandoned, neglected Guzamala local government for more than a decade.
Thousands of residents have been displaced from Guzamala and Abadam due to the activities of the terrorist groups for years.
Our people have no access to their farmland. Our children don't have access to the Western education and Islamic education in the other part of Borno State. Even the garrison town of Nomura is only the local government headquarters is accessible. There is no single community existing in Nomura local government.
Despite the fact that the Honorable Speaker has raised an issue with Guzamala local government, but honestly speaking, all the local governments, when you go to all these local governments, you can identify quite a number of projects that are executed by the executive governor of Borno State. And honestly, we are very proud of him.
The military and other security agencies are said to be scaling up operations to flush out the insurgents and pave the way for the safe return of the displaced populations.
The journey of 1,000 miles, they say, begins with a single step. Thus, the beginning of positive change in the life of the people of Borno State started on that day with our election into office. A high-powered committee has been set up to see to the relocation of the people of Guzamala and other communities in the state.
The committee will also oversee the repatriation of refugees from neighboring countries.
Komai na rayuwa ya fi karfin talaka. Gwamnatin Najeriya muna so ya taimaka wa wayanmu da idon rahama, ya agaza mana, ya sa hannu cikin lamarin nan.
The hope now is for the government to work towards addressing some of the major problems of the citizens. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
31 years after Nigeria moved from military rule to democracy, it has been stories of undemocratic tendencies plaguing the nation from one tenor to another. Some residents of Umuahia say what Nigeria has had over the years is not democracy or anything like it. News Center's Chinwe Ugeli sought the thoughts of the people on democracy in Nigeria and now reports.
It is the people's government, being that it is the people who are at the center of it, choosing leaders and holding them accountable.
Only in a mere saying, but if I'm asked to say, Nigeria is not practicing it, because you are not, there is no any freedom of speech, even freedom of movement.
Capital, no. With trend of things, you can see what is happening. Yeah, you can see what is happening. It's just a mere saying. It's not practical.
For me, I'm just saying the fact. The election, I will not say that our leaders, they did well. They didn't, because it was by stealing. Yes.
For this reason, many say this system of government has been abused in Nigeria by the leaders through fraudulent election processes, abuse of power, and interference of all the arms of government by the executive.
Going back
outcome of different elections in this country, I can tell you that, confidently tell you that we are not practicing democracy the way we ought to practice it.
For some, it is better the nation returns to parliamentary system of government, which reduces the power of the executive.
Running the administration of that parliamentary is lower. We just imitated the American system of government.
It was giving us a little relief then. But those of us who were born in the 50s, 60s, before now, things have changed.
There's also a call for some social issues such as unemployment, food prices, inflation, and hike in the cost of fuel to be addressed by the government, even as some say prayers will make our democracy work.
The state and federal government that control the bulk of the resources should focus more on job creation and food security.
We should be praying so that once God answers us, we definitely must see the reflection.
It's the saying that the worst democracy is still better than the best military junta, not encouraging the way and manner the various institutions in Nigeria, including the governments at all levels, are run. In Omaha News Central, Chinwe Ugele.
And the news continues in Western Africa, where one person has died from mpox infection and more than 4 others infected. The government said on Wednesday that it was trying to secure more treatment drugs as a precaution. Health Minister Joe Mpala told reporters that the 5 cases reported between May 8th and June 7 were the first recorded in the country since 2022. Mpox, previously known as monkeypox, is a viral illness transmitted through close contact with infected humans or animals and via materials such as contaminated sheets. In East Africa, Rwanda has said that the UN Refugee Agency lied when the organization told a British court this week that asylum seekers sent to the Eastern African country could be moved on again to states where they risk torture or death. Lawyers representing the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, told the court on Monday that Rwanda's asylum system was inadequate as part of a challenge to the British government's policy to deport asylum seekers there. The accusation is said to be built on past evidence which formed an important part of the UK Supreme Court's reasoning when it ruled last year that the British plan was unlawful. Britain said last week that the first flight to Rwanda will take off on July 24th, although that will be dependent on Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's Conservative Party winning the general election on July 4th. The trial hearing of the murder case against a former Isla-based cop, which is Ahmed Rashid, has resumed with the third of the 25 states witnesses taking to the stand. Rashid was in April last year charged with the murder of 2 teenagers, Jamal Mohammed and Mohammed Dar Kari, on March 31st, 2017 at Amal Plaza in Islay, Nairobi. He denied the 2 counts of murder before Justice Diana Kavidas and was released on bond. Now, State Prosecutor Alan Mulama had said they would avail 25 witnesses to testify during the trial. 12 of those witnesses are police officers, while the other 13 are civilians, out of whom 6 will be placed under the care of the Witness Protection Agency. Israel and Hamas have been accused of committing a litany of war crimes and human rights abuses since 7 October in a new independent report to the UN Human Rights Council. The critical accusations compiled by investigators from the UN's Commission of Inquiry accuse both sides of war crimes for mounting attacks against civilian populations and murder or unlawful or willful killings. The report, which covers the period up to the end of 2023, specifically accused Israel of crimes against humanity for torture, extermination, and gender persecution targeting Palestinian men and boys. However, Israel rejected the report's findings and accused the Commission of pursuing a narrow-led political agenda against it. Still on Israel in the meantime, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has arrived in Qatar to push for agreement on a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal, which currently hangs in the balance after Hamas' response to the latest proposals. Blinken was said to have been up late into the night assessing the texts handed by Hamas to mediators in Qatar and Egypt. The Palestinian armed group said it was ready to deal positively with the process, but stressed the need for Israel to agree to a permanent ceasefire. Israel's government has not commented, but an anonymous Israeli official said Hamas's response amounted to a rejection.
The longer this goes on, and remember, Hamas had this for 12 days, and it's not as if the world stood still in those 12 days. People were suffering throughout those 12 days. The longer this goes on, the more people will suffer. And it's time for the haggling to stop and a ceasefire to start.
In the first quarter of 2024, the National Bureau of Statistics company income tax data reveals a 12% decline in tax payments from both domestic and foreign businesses in Nigeria. As a result, the federal government's reserve or revenue decreased to 1.13 trillion naira, and the drop in revenue can be contributed or attributed to factors such as the depreciation of the naira, increasing expenses, and economic challenges, which have impacted the profitability of businesses. Currently, companies with a turnover above 100 million naira face a tax rate of 30%, while companies with a turnover ranging between 25 million naira and 100 million naira are taxed at 20%. Some businesses believe that these tax percentages are bothersome and negatively impact the ease of doing business in the country. Musa Obed, a microeconomic analyst, shared his insight on this matter when he was a guest on the Business Edge show.
Policy committee led by, Mr. Tayo Edele, are trying to understand all these questions, right, and all these problems that companies says that they have. And in September, they'll be releasing a report with, President Tinubu to show what will be the new tax regime within Nigeria. However, to directly answer your question, from the Q1 report, what we know is that the Big Four, that is the Big Four contributors to the corporate income tax, really shaped or continue to shape the payments. What do I mean? So in the first quarter, the top four CIT contributors, that is the corporate income tax contributors,
And in sports, three-time Paralympic champion Stephen Miller has announced his retirement from athletics. Miller, who amassed an impressive 34 major international medals, first competed for Great Britain in Atlanta in 1996, clinching gold at just 16 in the club throw event. Now, born with a cerebral palsy, the 44-year-old from Gateshead continued his success by defending his title in Sydney, also securing bronze in the discus and repeating victory in Athens, later earning silver in Beijing. Now, despite grappling with a hip injury in London 2012, where he placed 11th and undergoing hip replacement surgery the following year, he staged a comeback to claim bronze in Rio in 2016. His final international appearance was at the 2021 European Championships in Poland, where he achieved a fourth-place finish. And that's it at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. Governors have promised hope as Nigeria celebrates Democracy Day. Organized Labour has said no agreement reached yet on new minimum wage. And we also told you that one person has died and 4 more have been infected from Mpox outbreak in South Africa. Now remember that you can send us your eyewitness reports to the WhatsApp number now showing on the screen. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can also watch News Central live wherever you are on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Apple TV, and live on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Judith at TV.